Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. It's great to have you with us. Today we're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. And you're just joining us, our first story coming from Seattle, Washington, talking about dispute between two neighbors living side by side with one another. They also live in an association. One's upset with the parking, a lot of extra vehicles on the street, a bus parked in the driveway. And what's interesting is it seems that the association is silent throughout this, and it goes to court. And what I find even more interesting, Tony, is that the judge held and affirmed a summary judgment of dismissal of the plaintiff's case. I find that interesting usually when you're dealing with something like a bus or something, a large vehicle, don't you? I mean, usually it seems like most municipalities would have some sort of ordinance, but apparently not here.
I guess not.
Because
it was dismissed by both the lower court and the Court of Appeals in the state of Washington.
So I've got to assume that there's a difference with what can be done with parking.
Gene, there's probably something we don't know about this situation.
There always is something we don't know.
But we were talking about the three positions that are available to a board of directors at a homeowners association in any dispute.
Yeah.
And we covered, I think, the first position would be stay out of the issue completely. And I think this was an illustration of that. They didn't have to get involved. The city and state and the court system was taking care of the issue.
And I think we're making an assumption here, but if the association did not find it necessary to become involved, it was probably because there was no issue that was being broken.
All right,
according to the association's rules and regulations.
That addresses another stance that the association could take, and that is convey a position regarding the dispute. And you put it well. That's the situation in which the board would have to take a stand, is if covenants or rules and regulations of the association are being violated.
And that's where a lot of people seem to get really upset, where they feel that the board is becoming draconian in their views and the way that they mete things out, because they are asking people and trying to uphold enforcement of the rules and regulations or the governing documents.
Right. Although people are firmly on either side of that issue. Either they think the board is too dictatorial when something is being imposed upon them personally, but not regulatory enough if a neighbor's doing something that they're upset about. Don't you think that's
exactly. Yeah. If you want it to happen, it can't happen soon enough for you, for the other people.
That's right.
They're becoming too difficult.
But it does bring up the issue of how important it is for a board of directors to uphold their rules and regulations and their documents equitably and consistently for all owners, because that's the only stable ground you've got to stand on.
It really is. If you expect other people to act and behave in a civil adult manner, then you need to be uniform in how you handle things. And so, you're right. If you're talking about something that is clear in the governing documents, I think the board must say something. They can't not do it. And there's some who have done that. There's some who have said, well, it doesn't matter if we see someone breaking something until someone tells us.
Complains about it.
We're not going to do anything either. And I've heard that kind of laid-back approach. That's probably a bit too much.
Too relaxed.
Too relaxed.
Too
laid back for me.
It is a balancing act, isn't it, though? Because the board really does not have the time or the energy to become the police force.
No.
On the property either. So you have to find some middle ground. If you see the infraction, if you hear about the infraction, you should probably take action.
Oh, yeah, and that's a good point. I don't know that the association board should be looked at as the police or the management company, just because they've hired someone too, because they're not hired. The management company is not hired to be a policing force. The board of directors aren't elected to be just a policing force. That's right. Not to say that if they see something happening that they do nothing. They are obligated by those governing documents to point that out. But you can't. But people get real upset, don't they, if they say, well, if there's a parking issue, if you can't get everybody 100% of the time, all the time that it happens, you shouldn't do it at all.
You shouldn't distribute any violation notices. Yeah. And that's not realistic either.
No.
The city can't catch every traffic violation or every parking violation. But when they see it, they have a process to follow, and that's how the association should deal with it too.
And so we've talked about those two, staying out, and I think that's a good rule of thumb, especially if it's something that the city does have an ordinance about.
Yeah.
Allow them to do it, because it allows you. It allows the board, to stay a neighbor.
And besides that, they have the power to do something about it. So, we're always telling homeowners that they should call the police if there's a noise issue late at night. And people are reluctant to call the police on their neighbors, but they sure will call the management company the next Monday and be very upset.
Yeah, and you think about, how fair is that really for someone to say, well, I'm not going, they say, don't they? I didn't call the police because I didn't want to get anybody in trouble.
That's right. But I want you to do something about this now that it's Monday and I've got a manager to be mad at.
But how ridiculous is that statement?
It doesn't make sense.
I didn't want to get anybody in trouble. Yes, you did. Otherwise, you wouldn't be bringing it up.
That's right. You didn't want to take responsibility for your own complaint.
And let's talk about that. Well, I'm calling you now. I'm telling you about something.
Right.
You should just act upon it.
Right.
Does that... I guess if you're sure of this person's position and assured that this person is always accurate, you would. But other people get upset, don't they, when they say, well, you don't know, you didn't see.
Usually what I will do is I will send a notice saying, we heard from a neighbor that we received a complaint. And that's all I say. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm not usually reprimanding anyone for anything. I'm just saying you need to be aware that your neighbors thought you were way too noisy on Friday
and
night.
You're asking if this is this the case, give us a call, and you ask for a response.
And then, of course, that's right.
But let's talk about this middle ground. So and that is, when does the association get involved or try to provide a forum to
settle the dispute,
discuss and settle the dispute?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that most associations have a process where a person with a grievance against the association can address the board. Have you been involved with associations that had a formal process for neighbor disputes?
There are some that actually think about that far enough that they actually have a protocol, a policy in place at dealing with that. But I must say, probably not a huge amount would be my thinking.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen a lot.
No, usually what happens though is that there is the homeowners forum, I guess, and so if someone is upset with another neighbor, sometimes they'll come to the board meeting.
That's true.
And express to the board, I'm upset about so and so. So there may not be a process other than, I guess, the homeowners forum.
Yeah.
And when a homeowner brings something out, then I've seen the board instruct and say,
sure,
have you tried talking to them first? Do that if you can't settle.
If
then
it's
come
noise,
back.
call the police. If it's a dog running loose, call the city, the animal control office, or the police, whichever is appropriate. And you're right. The board can advise that person on what action to take, if any.
But then, if it clearly is something that's coming to a head, if it seems to be something that's escalating, I think the board needs to get involved, and that might mean a special meeting for the board to sit down and to listen to both sides, carefully, factually, and calmly. If they can't, some associations have thought of enlisting the mediation services between neighbors too.
And some cities offer those services for free.
Yes, they do. But it's something that in those cases you can't just let it be ignored either.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it was clear that the city was coming out and saying there's no issue as far as we're concerned here either.
It's pretty ding dong obvious.
Yeah, you think so. But then when that happens, and things are always going to happen where people still disagree at the end of the day, the person that is in the minority, the person that is in the losing end of that proposition, that's when our government, our society says we're going to be adult enough and let it go on, and you just let it pass. Well, hey, one thing we can't let pass is this time to take another break. We're going to do that right now. We'll be back in a few minutes with more of Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280, The Patriot.